the MMA Grand and Pound Show. I'm your host, Enrique Solorzano, and I would like to welcome you to the Bar Burner TV network on ZINGOTV channel 250. Please remember to download both the Bar Burner and ZINGOTV apps in their respective app store on iOS and Android devices. Both apps are free. While you download them, please make sure to rate and leave a comment. And ZINGOTV is also available on Google Chromecast and Chromecast TV sticks, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku TV sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. So, first of all, Happy New Year. Welcome to the first show of the year. And we have a lot of things planned for the show and for this first show. So, we're going to go through a lot of news in the MMA world due to that there are not fights coming up until next Saturday. So we're going to talk about the Fighters Only 2020 awards, some surprises, some like they were obvious choices. We're going to talk about Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. So Bellator's champ, Michael Chandler, is going to have his debut on the UFC. He's going to fight Dan Hooker, which is not an easy task. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker. Is a fight that makes sense to make. Is this fight going to happen? So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. Is the beef there? This is the 6th anniversary of the first fight between them. So we're going to talk about that. And Jon Jones tweets something about that. So we're going to go through it. So first of all, we're going to start with the Fighters Only 2020 awards. So this publication that talks about MMA, they held up this ceremony in December 26th at Las Vegas, and it was hosted by Dolph Lundgren. There was the 12th MMA awards from the publication Fighters Only. So on these awards, they awarded several fighters. There were a lot of categories in that. And one of the most important, obviously, is Fighter of the Year. So on the Fighter of the Year, they chose Israel Adesanya, which is he is the middleweight champ. But last year he fought only 2 times. The first time against Joel Romero, and the second time against Paulo Costa. So on the first fight with Joel Romero, that fight was one of my biggest disappointments of 2020. I talk about this on my last show. In that fight, both of the fighters, they were respecting each other too much, I think. Obviously, Adesanya was being careful of not getting hit by Romero because he has a very powerful punch. But also Romero, he was being very cautious. He was respecting the champ too much. And I think that if you're the challenger, you have to go get that belt. So that was what happened. And with Paulo Costa, that fight, it wasn't a disappointment per se. It was actually like one of the best performances by Adesanya. But Costa got dominated. He was dominated during the entire fight, which was only 2 rounds. And now the champ, Adesanya, he will move up 1 weight class and he will fight Jan Blachowicz. So that's going to be a great challenge for him. It was pretty surprising because other MMA media outlets, they had Figueiredo as the Fighter of the Year. So Israel Adesanya, it wasn't a bad choice for sure, but it was like something that I wasn't expecting. And then they had for Knockout of the Year Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren. A lot of MMA media outlets, they had another choice, especially the UFC, but I think this one deserves that award because it was just perfect. It was, if you haven't seen it, it was a crazy knee that Masvidal gave to Ben Askren in just 5 seconds. And I think that knee, maybe it was the thing that retired Ben Askren. And Ben Askren, he was the champion a lot of MMA promotions, and then he came to the UFC. He fought a couple of fights, he won, and then Masvidal gave him this amazing knockout. It was incredible. It was well timed knee, and like I said, I think it was the perfect knockout. And a lot of people, they thought that it was a fluke or it was like a lucky punch by Askren. Sorry, by Masvidal, right? But no, Masvidal then released some training videos when he was practicing this movement. It was amazing. I think this knockout cemented Masvidal superstar status, and after that he fought. No, I'm lying. Before that, he fought Nate Diaz, and with this knockout, like he cemented his superstar status. Then he faced champ Kamaru Usman. He lost that fight, but yeah, this knockout is one of the best knockout of the year, and one of the craziest for sure in MMA history. So for fight of the year, they had Sean Whaley versus Joanna Champion or Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Sorry if I mispronounced it. And this fight, it was amazing. It was at the beginning of the year, and well, because 2020 was like a very chaotic year. It seemed like this fight happened 2 years ago or three, right? But no, it happened last year at the beginning of 2020. In this fight, it was a fast-paced fight. They were going back and forth. Joanna had her face all swollen. It was crazy. It was a war. So, like, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. And this award, it was one of the most important, I think, personally, Journalist of the Year, Ariel Helwani. So Ariel Helwani, he's a journalist, an MMA journalist. He talks about basketball and baseball as well. But I've been following him since he had the MMA Hour podcast. And you could watch that podcast on YouTube. He was doing an amazing job. And now he works at ESPN. So I really like what he's doing, and I think he's one of the best, if not the best journalist in MMA today. So those were the Fighters Only 2020 awards. So let me know if you agree with some of them, if you don't. And now let's talk about Dan Hooker versus Michael Chandler. So this fight will take place soon at UFC 257 on January 23rd in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be in the same card as Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. So that card is going to be stacked. But who is Michael Chandler? Okay, so Michael Chandler, he's a three-time Bellator champion, and he's one of the newest additions to the UFC. And I think nobody could take him. So Chandler, he's an amazing MMA athlete. But how about Dan Hooker? So Dan Hooker, he's ranked number 6 in the UFC. He fought twice last year, and he gave us a hell of a performance against Paul Felder. So they went back and forth for 5 rounds. He won by split decision. Some people believe that Paul Felder won that fight. I think it was close, but Hooker got the W. But Dan Hooker lost against Dustin Poirier in June by unanimous decision. So one thing we can tell about these fights is that, first of all, Hooker, he's a very durable fighter, and second, that he has cardio for days. So this fight is going to be a war. And the thing is that Bellator is a different beast than the UFC. So yeah, Chandler has a tough test ahead. Today, they release the betting odds, and Michael Chandler, he is the underdog. Many people will say that why is he the underdog? Even though he's the champ, he has been the champ 3 times. The UFC is different. So like it's not that I'm not saying that Bellator is amazing, but something that is true is that the UFC they have the best fighters, and we saw that with Ben Askren. I just talked about it. He won everything you could ever win in different MMA promotions. Then he came to the UFC. He had a couple of fights, and I think he after the third or fourth fight he got knocked out, right? And against Jorge Masvidal, who wasn't the champ, he was in the top 5. So that speaks volumes about the quality of fighters that it's in the UFC. So in the UFC, you have like the most dangerous sharks, so to speak. So this fight is going to take place in a couple of weeks, in like the 3 or 4 weeks. Um, and if you have seen the fight between Dan Hooker and Paul Felder, you have to watch it. I think it's available on the UFC's YouTube channel for free, or if you have UFC Fight Pass, you can watch it over there. So yeah, they went back and forth for 5 rounds. And Paul Felder, when he fought against Rafael dos Anjos, he talked about that fight. And Dan Hooker, he's not top 5, but he's pretty close. He's ranked number 6, and it's gonna be a tough fight for him. A lot of people they were asking for Chandler to fight against the champ, right? But no, I think he has to. He needs to have 2 or 3 fights in the UFC before earning his spot, earning his title shot, right? So Dan Hooker is a good challenge. So let's see if Chandler beats Hooker. I think he deserves a spot in the top 5. Then he's gonna have another fight, and then he can uh, get a shot at the title. So this fight is gonna be very interesting. Who do you like? Who do you got for this fight? I think I think Dan Hooker will get this fight. It's hard because Chandler is an amazing athlete, and he was a backup fighter on the fight between Khabib versus Joystick Gaethje. So actually, he flew to Abu Dhabi, and he was ready. He was ready if like some of those fighters couldn't fight. So that speaks volumes. So he's ready. He's ready to take any challengers, and it's going to be his UFC debut. So he has a lot of weight in his back. And Dan Hooker, he has something to test. Obviously, he's not happy about losing against Dustin Poirier, and he's not happy that a lot of people are saying that uh, Paul Felder won that fight. So both fighters they have something to prove, and like I said, it's gonna be a war, especially that Hooker is a very durable fighter, and Chandler he's an aggressive fighter. So it's gonna be a great matchup, and like you can't miss this card. UFC 257. Okay, so now let's talk about Paulo Costa versus Robert Whitaker. So first, let's talk about what is surrounding this fight. Israel Adesanya, he is the actual middleweight champion. He moved up. He's gonna move up 1 weight class to fight Jan Blachowicz. He is trying to become a double champ by getting the light heavyweight belt at UFC 259. So this is going to take place, and Paulo Costa's manager he is asking for a fight with Robert Whitaker for the middleweight interim belt. So because Adesanya is gonna fight the champ, the light heavyweight champion, like the belt, like they are asking to Adesanya to leave like that spot, right? And this fight makes sense ranking wise. So first of all, Robert Whittaker, he defeated Jared Cannonier in October by unanimous decision. It wasn't his best performance, but Whittaker made a statement and showed why he's the number one middleweight UFC fighter in the world. But then Paulo Costa, he lost against Champ Adesanya in September, and he's ranked number 2. So does this fight make sense? Ranking wise, like I said, it does. The thing is that the other contenders, they have lost against these two fighters. Like, for example, Darren Till, he lost against Robert Whittaker. The fighter that could fight one of these guys is Vettori. Maybe Vettori versus Whittaker. Vettori, he's an exciting addition to the top 5. And the thing is that I don't believe Paulo Costa deserves a shot at the title because he just lost against Champ and he got dominated like for 2 rounds. And actually during the weekend, I watched that fight again and he wasn't doing anything. He was staying there while Israel Adesanya was kicking his legs like crazy. And actually, at the middle of the round, you can see Paulo Costa's legs, and they're swollen and they're purple. So I don't know what happened to Paulo Costa. And also, he was mocking Israel Adesanya, and it was pretty funny because at one point, Paulo Costa, he doesn't want to move, and Adesanya, he yells at him, and he's like, Romero, referring to Joel Romero, who fought against Adesanya, and Romero followed that game plan. He didn't want to move. He was just standing there, right? So, I don't know, like, this fight obviously makes sense if Adesanya, first of all, if he wants to give up the belt. And in the meantime, I think, yeah, we need a fight. We need a fight in the meantime. So Paul Costa versus Robert Whittaker makes sense. I don't think Costa deserves it. And honestly, I think if this fight take place, Robert Whittaker is going to take the W. And then he will face Adesanya or another fighter for the interim belt, or I don't know. But Whittaker, he was a very good champion. He was a good champ. When he fought Adesanya, I'm not saying that Adesanya didn't win fair and square. He's a very good champion. And like I said on another of my shows, I think he's one of the smartest fighters in the UFC today. But I think Whittaker did something wrong. He was going forward. He was trying to catch Adesanya, and I think he was getting desperate, and that's when Adesanya got him. So this fight, Paul Costa versus Robert Whittaker, who you got? Like I said, I'm betting for my boy Robert Whittaker, and yeah, it's gonna be very very interesting fight in a middleweight division. Okay, and to wrap up this show, I'll talk about Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. So this fight, we're not gonna have another fight, first of all. But what happened is that 6 years ago, they faced each other for the first time at UFC 182. Jon Jones won by unanimous decision, giving Daniel Cormier his first loss. So he was undefeated before facing Jon Jones. And then, so like this, like today, it's 6 years ago that they faced each other. And Jon Jones tweeted, because, yeah, he tweets stuff sometime, Stipe is your rival, I'm your superior. And then he deleted it. So obviously, this is regarding about Daniel Cormier, that he needs to understand that Jon Jones beat him. But what happened is that they fought again in 2017. Jon Jones won, and he gave a crazy kick to Cormier's head. But the thing is that the result was overturned after Jones failed a drug test. So Jon Jones is saying that he beat him fair and square. Daniel Cormier said that he didn't win that one, right? Because he tested positive for steroids. And after that fight, they wanted to schedule a third fight, but it's not going to happen. Why? Because Daniel Cormier, he has retired, and now he works as an analyst for the UFC and as a color commentator, while Jon Jones, he's looking for new challenges. So now what he wants to do is to move up one weight class, and he's looking to fight Stipe Miocic or Francis Ngannou in order to cement his legacy. So wow, like Jon Jones is one of my favorite fighters, and for him to pursue that, it's amazing because it's a very tough task. So first of all, Stipe Miocic, he's the actual heavyweight champ, and I think he's one, if not the best, heavyweight champion ever. He has the most wins for sure. How about Francis Ngannou? Ngannou, he has crazy punching power. I think he is the fighter that punches the hardest in the UFC. He has like the world record or something like that. Nobody punches harder than Francis Ngannou. So that makes sense. It's going to be a tough challenge for him. But if we do MMA math, which doesn't work often, let's say that, first of all, it was that Cain Velasquez. No, let me see. Okay. So it was that Stipe Miocic defeated Francis Ngannou. And then Daniel Cormier defeated Stipe Miocic. And then Jon Jones defeated Daniel Cormier. So if we do this mathematics, Jon Jones is the best. So it's pretty funny because some people say that Jon Jones, he has won this fight in the octagon, but DC has won that fight in life because now he's retired, he's working in the UFC, he does this, he does that, and he doesn't get punched in the face anymore. So what do you think about it? Obviously Jon Jones was maybe not but he was better those times than Daniel Cormier. And if he moves up to heavyweight and beats the champ Miocic, he's gonna be the best for sure. Okay, my friends. So that's everything for today. It was the first show of the year. And again, Happy New Year. I hope everything you wish for and everything you're planning for becomes true. And just to remind you that there are no fights this week. Tune in Mondays for results and analysis and Wednesdays for predictions and analysis at 7 p.m. Follow Barburner Network at BarburnerNet. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And remember, this is a conversation. Let me know what you think at Enrique Drums MX. This show can also be heard on the Barburner Radio Network on its 122 platforms. Please check out barburner.ca for all the news. Barburner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, leave it. I'll see you on the next one.